Okay, good afternoon, DK, Mr. V Amps. This is the day after playing a gig. Okay, this is our Vox Night Train 15 G2. It's a small little 15 watt amp, and it sits on top of a single 12-inch speaker cabinet. That speaker cabinet is about 15 or 16 inches tall. Okay. This head got knocked off of the speaker cabinet during the gig. It fell onto carpet. The cabinet still looks just fine. Doesn't look like it got any real injury. The only injury it looks like we had the little ring that retains the power switch popped off. But of course now the amp doesn't work. We have the girth and bright channels. This stuff's supposed to light up, and it's not lighting up. The sound we got through it was really weak. When I took it off a standby before, these did come on for a real brief moment, and it actually did work for about a half a second. I don't know if any magic's going to happen here, probably not. But anyway, it took a bump, so I'm guessing whatever powers this, some kind of low power circuit, is not getting juice. When I turn the tubes on here, when I take it off standby, initially, like I say, it came to life today for about 2 seconds. It certainly didn't last night. But when you apply the higher power to this Chinesium tubes, they kind of get a little bit of a bluish glow in them a little bit, so you can tell they're on. So I think that part's working. We're going to take it apart and see what happened to this goofy amp. That thing fell like 15 inches. It wasn't even much, and it didn't take a huge bump. I should just try to file a warranty claim. I think I've had this less than a year, but we're gonna look. Yeah, probably something dumb. Okay, so like under normal circumstances, the channel lights and stuff should turn on even when the amp is in standby. We've got the bottom off, obviously, so we can have a look around and see what's going on. So I think what we'll do is we'll put some electricity to it. I checked with the meter. I beeped all the little fuses in there just in case that was something, and it wasn't something. And I did take the time to put the power switch back into position. So that's where we're at with that. So the amp should be on standby, and we'll turn on the power. And let's see here. Do I have any lights? No. I've got the volume turned down. Let me just take it off a standby for my own amusement. Nothing happened. Okay. So perhaps if we poke around at that with a stick, we'll maybe find a spot or something that came loose. Like we have these relays. These all kind of click in concordance with the channel switching. And I already checked a lot of these leads. Should be like power leads going in here, and we've wiggled these around and tried to make sure they were all reseated. And this thing's the reverb module. I just kind of hung it out of the way. My other 50-cent question is, what is this and why is there nothing hooked to it? And there's a corresponding one on here that there's nothing hooked to, but I think that says MIDI. So probably, I'm assuming this module or whatever, this was designed with different ideas and functions in mind. You could do different things with them. So, yep, I'll get a wood stick here and we'll poke down the board and see what we find. Okay, so we found a Chinese-made chopstick to go with our Chinese-made amp. And just because I kind of need to be able to see these, I'm going to put my hand here. They light up real bright when they light up. I'm going to try to... I would have thought what would have gotten hit or messed up would have been over here, because the only LED that's on is the power light. You can probably see that glowing off the chopstick. Neither of those two are on. And what was goofy is when I applied power to this, a little bit earlier, right before I started shooting the video, it did actually spring to life for a second or two. Made some yucky, hissy noises, and then went back off. So there are other possibilities about what's going on. Anytime something takes a little bit of a fall, you always kind of concern yourself with flick a couple of those switches just for fun. You concern yourself too with the tubes. That's weird that it decided to work for me for about a minute before, after it got home. It doesn't want to play ball right now. I would have expected some pretty grand sized resistors for this low voltage power supply. It's probably only 6 volts. But if this is running off the 6 volts, maybe rectified off the tubes, maybe if a tube's got a just, messed up filament, it's dragging the voltage down. Hard to say. We're not getting anywhere with the pokey bit. No luck. This thing is put in here pretty darn good. But it's definitely an energy issue. I don't have power to this region. And it's supposed to have power to this front region. And it just doesn't have it. Now, weirdly enough, last time it was when I took the amp off of standby that it actually came to life for a moment. So, see, I got the volume to nothing. So, yeah, see, nothing. Zero, zilch, nada. Well, we'll check a few more things and come back if we have any result. Okay, so here's the circuit board. I'm either going to be a genius or an idiot, probably an idiot, but just considering the age of the amp not being very old, and knowing that it was a bump that it took, I'm not thinking we have a bunch of fried or failed components here. I really don't, because the amp worked fine, took a bump, and then quit working. So I'm going off the theory that beyond the power switch taking a bump, there's probably was a crack in the solder, particularly off something heavy like a tube or a pot, or maybe a cap or something, and or like where these leads go into the board for power, something. So I took the soldering iron and spent a little bit of time going around. When they soldered these originally at the factory with the machine, the solder's kind of thin. We went through, reflowed the board, and thickened it up a little bit. So now we can see where we're at. Okay, so I was nosing around, and I checked the windings. The yellow's the crazy high voltage. The orange is the filament windings because it measures about 6 volts AC. And then there's this red set that measures about 15 volts. 15 volts to me seems like it would be what they would want to run the solid state stuff on. And coming off of one of these red leads, we go right to this resistor labeled F1. Usually resistors are labeled R, so I'm assuming F1 means like it's a fuse type resistor, fuse resistor. and trying to read the color code, and the problem is this thing looks a little toasted, and I feel like I can see a 5th band on it, but yeah. So I've got yellow, violet, looks like silver, but that would be like yellow, violet, gray, gold, gray, or silver. What if it's backwards? See, I don't know what direction it was. It doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna try to figure it out, but that should be, I think, about a 48 ohm, 47.5 ohm, or 47.8 ohm. I think that's what that was. So I'll look it up. Okay, so oops, I've got some editing to do there. I think I left the camera running. But after changing that resistor, now these lights work. I ain't got no tubes in it, but let's see, maybe we put some tubes in it and it'll work. If it works now, then I'll be happy. All of this fiddle farting around for a friggin' resistor. Woe is me. You don't want to know how much time I wasted on this. Okay, so I made a little bit of progress, but something is still wacky with voltages because the these LEDs are like blinky. Okay, they're like blinky, and if we listen to the amp, turn it on here, you can hear it's like motorboating. I don't know if that's motorboating or what that is. So it might be that I don't have a ground point or something, or maybe I've got a... There's still something else to figure out. Okay, so I figured that it was probably starving for voltage because it was acting weird and there was kind of the clicking thing. So, you know, this said F1, so I said F1's got to be fuse, right? So that was probably a really low value resistor that, you know, the colors are unreadable because it got too hot or something. So I just jumped across my replacement resistor, and now everything is like doing what it's supposed to, as far as I can tell. And the amp's loud and things are groovy, so I'm going to try to find a low value resistor to put in there that I think will work. Maybe I say it's just functioning as a fuse, so a couple of ohms. We'll get like maybe, I don't know. I thought that was supposed to be 47 ohms. Maybe it's like 4.7 ohms. It's really hard to read that thing. Oh well, hey, we're making progress, right? We got an amp that works. Even if I just jump that resistor, I can use the amp, but I'm sure it was in there for some reason. Hooray. Okay, so I've swapped in a lower value that I assumed maybe I was 10 times too high, so instead of 47 ohms I went with 4.7 ohms, and it seems to be working. It's not blinking. I can turn it up. Now granted, none of these are like grounded to the chassis, so I'm getting some noise there. But I mean, we work, and I can switch the channels and hear the difference in sound. That's our really aggressive channel, by the way. That's our really high gain channel. So I think I can put this all back together now. I can hear the reverb working. So yep, put it back together. One more test. Win. Victory. Yay. Okay, so we're going to give this thing one more final test. So on the bright channel, that's at the middle. Just gets a buzz. I know you probably want to hear this through a guitar. Go watch the old video where I actually got this and tested it. Treble's good. Middle's good. Bass is good. You might not be able to hear that in the camera. See if reverb works. That reverb's working. I know that's a crappy way to demonstrate it, but oh well. Alright, now if I switch over to thick, it's going to bypass the other, so that's going to make it louder. So thick works, and then let's switch it over to girth, and this is the high gain channel. And the dark switch works. So all the switches work, all the channels are working, so I suppose the only thing I can still check on it is let's make sure the foot switch operates. And these amps are a little weird with foot switches. You know, I got a great idea. Let's turn this in a weird way so that we knock it off the table here and drop it again from a higher height. That'll do it some good. It'll love that. Okay, if I remember right, I think it needs to be in the down positions like that. Okay, so that takes it from button 1 takes it from girth to bright, and button 2 takes it from bright to thick. So now it's thick, now it's bright, now it's girth. So yeah, they all work, and the foot switch works, and I'm too angry at this to play it, but I know it's working right now, so we're fine. And I should have probably flipped standby before I did that. Whatever. Alright, we're good. Bye.